Welcome, everybody, to the Dave Grenier podcast, where we talk about photography and other creative things. Today, we're going to answer a question from Reddit, talking about feeling insufficient and getting past creative roadblocks. So, I'm going to read the question here that we got from Wormtail71. I'm going to read the entire thing. It's kind of a long post, but I feel like the context is really good here. He says, I'm 51 and have been into photography for more than 30 years, and I always thought I had a pretty good eye, but today's images leave me very frustrated. I subscribe to a lot of photography-related stuff on Facebook, so I see some of the most amazing images, and I know most of them are not real, but I still get depressed knowing that I cannot create images of the same level. A lot of these images are comps, stacks, HDR, and other heavily edited photos. I have the necessary software, Lightroom, Photoshop, and others, but I don't have the patience or the skill to edit a bunch of raw files after a shoot. I have nothing against people that have the talent and expertise to create some of these amazing images, but I do feel like I've been left behind. Does anyone else ever feel this way? Do you feel frustrated or depressed, or like your work isn't good enough? How do you cope with it? I've gotten to the point that I have little to no interest in getting my gear out and trying to be creative. Thanks for listening. This is hard to hear. And the thing is, he's not alone. This happens to everybody, including guys that have been doing this for 30 years. The problem here, I think, is compounded. It's a lot of different issues, but is compounded by social media. There's nothing wrong inherently with social media, but the thing about social media is that we have a tendency to compare ourselves to other people that are showcasing their best work. A lot of that work is heavily edited. It's really hard to compare yourself online because most of us have a certain level of imposter syndrome. I think that's really where this comes from, at least for that I don't feel like I can stack up. Somebody who's been doing this for 30 years and doesn't feel like they can stack up. Let me pause for a second. I've seen his portfolio and it's great, but he still feels insufficient. And I think that comes from the fact that social media is so prevalent with everybody showcasing their best work. A lot of times people like to showcase that something is, oh, this is how it was. This is natural or whatever. And they don't want to talk about how heavily edited it is. You'll see that a lot where people say, I didn't do any editing. I just got this in camera. And sometimes that's not true. And it's evident for those that know how to look for it. It's something that a lot of us go through. And especially if you're a beginner, I want you to be aware of that because it's going to happen. So I want to address the second point, which is not feeling like he has the patience or the time to edit all those raw photos. And that's fine. To me, that says that you enjoy the process of taking the photos, but the editing part is not that enjoyable for you. And that's fine. Do what makes you happy. If you don't need to deliver the photos for some reason, for a client, or because you're trying to build your business and you need your portfolio, then don't worry about it. I understand the feeling like you need to. I'd wager to say the majority of photographers don't edit 90% of the photos that they take. And so for my last point, I wanted to address the part where he says, I've gotten to the point that I have little to no interest in getting my gear out and trying to be creative. So this spoke to me because this actually happened to me last summer. I ended up being very uninspired. And I think it had a lot to do with work being so overwhelming. And just, I was taking photos because I knew that would, when I go out, it would make me feel better, but it really wasn't making me feel better. I was just ticking the box. Okay, I took the photos, and I would get a little bit excited at times, and I'd see something and be like, yeah, that's great. I want to take the photo. But I was really searching a lot of the times. I wasn't really as engaged as I once was. And so what solved that for me was I kind of created a cardinal sin for photographers, for professional photographers. I shot in auto and I liked it. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. So it's one of those things where when you're a photographer, when you're a professional photographer, if you're shooting in auto, it feels like you're cheating. It feels like, oh, I'm better than that. And I'm not even judging people that shoot auto. That's fine. You want to shoot auto all you want. That's cool. Go for it. But I know how to shoot manual. And so that means that I have to shoot manual, because if I don't, then I'm being lazy and I'm cheating, and I'm letting the camera do the work for me. It turns out that going in auto and having a 50 millimeter prime lens restricted me from any decisions except for the composition. So those of you who don't know, a prime lens means that you can't zoom with it. It's fixed. The only way for me to zoom is to zoom with my feet to get closer. And the burden of choice was gone. And it really freed me to a point where I actually really enjoyed getting the compositions. Removing that burden of choice, I honestly would not have pegged that as being the thing that freed me so much, but it really did. And it made me fall in love again. Whether you're a beginner or a veteran that's been doing this for over 30 years, you're going to run into these pitfalls and trials and tribulations, but you're not alone. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, throw them in the comments below. If I don't hear from you, until next time, be good to each other.